Welcome back to An Audience of One by Genniversity, in which we deliver spiritually uplifting and motivational content to individuals who need a reminder that they have worth, that they have value, and a gift that they need to share with the world, and that no matter how many mistakes you've made, it's never too late to make today the day that you change your life. One of the things that you're going to have to come to terms with as you go through this process is that you're going to have to reckon with the idea of where you're at versus where you could have been. You've spent years self-sabotaging yourself instead of putting in the work, striving towards your goals and towards bettering yourself. So naturally, you've fallen behind wherever your previous trajectory would have taken you had you not fallen apart. On top of this, you might find yourself from time to time looking at those that are around you and starting to compare yourself and your situation to where others are at. People who are younger than you, people who have less knowledge than you, people who have less experience than you, people who've had less success than you have now seemingly passed you by. By every measure, you can look around and find somebody who you may have perceived was behind you previously has now leapfrogged you. This can cause you a great sense of frustration because although you're now awake and motivated to take action and improve your life, it can take the wind out of you as you look around and see all of these people who've surpassed you in business and character and spirituality and relations and fitness and so on, because it forces you to reflect on what you could have done with the time had you done the right thing. First thing that you have to understand is that we learn more from our failures than we're going to learn from our successes. It may be that the mistakes that you've made and the lessons that you've learned from those mistakes may allow you to reach heights that you never would have reached had you never strayed from the path. Understand that there are a lot of people who are going to remain stuck in complacency because they've never seen the nightmare of the abyss. They don't have that fear, so they're never going to be as vigilant as you will be moving forward because of what you've seen, because of what you understand. That fear that you have of returning to that place will light a fire under you that most will never experience. And that fire might propel you further than most who've yet to be granted that level of motivation. Also know that among the lessons that you've learned are of the many dangers and pitfalls of so many different things that many others may not take as seriously as you will because of your experiences, which is going to allow you to remain so much more vigilant in areas where others may become very lax. Maybe not to the extent that it causes them to self-destruct in the way that you did, but enough that it causes them to slow down in ways that they don't even realize. Recognize that whatever happened, happened. And most of the time, the wisdom behind why what happened to us will remain unknown. Regardless, it happened. There's nothing that you can do about it now except to learn from the mistakes that you made and utilize the lessons that you learned in moving forward. You have to remember that this is your path. This is your journey. It's going to take its own twists. It's going to take its own turns, and things are going to happen at the time that they are meant to for your specific spiritual journey. You cannot sit there and start judging yourself based on what you see or what you think other people are doing, because remember, you're judging yourself based on your perceived notion of other people's success. You know better than anyone else that what is observed by people is oftentimes not even remotely close to the reality of what is happening behind closed doors. So don't assume that somebody else's perceived success anywhere closely matches the reality of what's going on in their life. Most people look at someone's financial status, their fitness level, travel photos, or popularity as some measure of success. Unfortunately, this has been amplified in recent years through social media, where people post nothing but their highlight reels. Unfortunately, social media is littered with absolute frauds who are outright lying about their situation in order to sell you their course or some clothing brand. You have everything from people paying realtors to rent out a mansion for the day to pretend that they actually own the place, to renting out studios that masquerade as a private jet so that they can complete photo shoots, or models using poses to create angles, as well as filters to create some sort of perceived beauty, as well as fitness gurus who are using steroids to increase their physique and their physical performance. Clips telling you how I made $30,000 in 1 month, and you can too by buying my course and selling it to other people who can sell it to other people who can sell it to suckers another ladder down on my pyramid scheme. And the list goes on of ways in which people are cheating themselves and cheating other people while hiding behind this mask of perceived success, while their true lives, at the very least, are horrendous by the mere fact that they're liars who are cheating other people. And quite possibly they're projecting so much because of the misery that they feel with the reality of their situation, which they'll never post publicly online. We live in a society right now where people spend way too much time projecting who they are. And as a general rule, when somebody spends an enormous amount of time trying to convince you that they are something, they're usually not. And there is usually a direct proportional relationship between the amount at which they are trying to project their success and the distance that they are from actual happiness. And the biggest thing that's missed in all of this is, what is success? When you look at others, you judge them based on external factors, when true success is an internal measure of who you are and how you live up to the principles and the code of conduct that you strive to adhere to. If you measure someone's success based on how far along they are in their journey towards their goals, it can be really easy to confuse someone's progress towards material things with their progress along their spiritual journey. But don't forget that oftentimes these things are tools used to corrupt the heart and drag one's soul away from its greater purpose. So there's a lot of things that you may look at other people as having that first and foremost they don't even really have. And even if they do have, those things may be of a detriment to them more than they are an asset. So you don't want to play the comparison game by looking at what other people have, by looking at what they've accomplished, or by looking at how far ahead you perceive them to be. First is that you judge success by more than just accomplishments and possessions. Success is who you are. It's the health of your relationships. It's your ability to adhere to the principles that you say that you believe in. Success is doing what you said you were going to do. Second is that you're on your own personal journey. You're going to arrive at different destinations at different times than others, and there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes we learn lessons later in life than others, and that's perfectly fine. Everyone has different circumstances, capabilities, and opportunities from their upbringing all the way up until their current situation. It's possible that you would thrive in somebody else's shoes. It's also possible you'd drown. Third is that when you attach your personal assessment of success to somebody else's position in life, it is very easy to drive yourself into despair. That's because when it comes to chasing wealth, possessions, and admirers, there's never enough. There's always more that you can attain. And there's always somebody who has more than you. This puts you in a situation where you're running on a treadmill, chasing a carrot that's at the end of a stick that's too long for you to ever reach. You can try and get more and more and more, but at the end of the day, it doesn't bring you happiness. At the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, are those the things that you really want? The type of people that attach their assessment of who they are to wealth, possessions, or admirers are very shallow. Worst of all is that when you waste time chasing these things, it robs you of the time that you could be using to find true happiness through personal reflection, development of relationships, and trying to make an impact on those around you. Fourth is that when you play this comparison game, it can cause you to take on way more than you can handle. And that is one of the worst things you can do when you're striving for personal development. When you compare yourself and your efforts to others, you forget that everyone has their own circumstances, their own challenges, and their own journey. This means that you're equipped to deal with life and the challenges that you face differently than every other person on the planet. You need to realize that your race is not against somebody else who may or may not have it easier than you. And you have to remember that your success is not tied to who reaches a specific destination first, or who accomplishes a specific goal first, or who has more accolades, or who has more supporters. Your success is personal to you, and it's measured by how much effort you put in towards your goals on your journey while you are tried and tested by obstacles and trials that hit you along the way. Run your race. What are you trying to accomplish? What is the most necessary thing for you to do at this current time towards the goals that are most important to you in this specific time? Like a toddler just starting school, you don't place them in an advanced physics class. You start them out by being able to count, then you move on to addition and subtraction, then you move on to multiplication and division. You don't get upset because somebody else is studying trigonometry and you're still stuck on fractions. The reason they're at where they're at is most likely because they've treaded the path where you're at already. You don't get to jump the process. Somebody studying English for the first time shouldn't be diving right into Shakespeare. When it comes to your personal journey, it's very much like going into a new school where you have to take a placement exam so that they don't start you at a level that's way over your head. What's right for someone else right now isn't necessarily right for you. And you have to remember that what you see is not reality. Someone might find something easy, so there's not a whole lot of spiritual development in that. So just because somebody else finds something easy doesn't mean that they're necessarily getting ahead. The fact that you're striving and struggling through certain things is a greater opportunity for you to grow. So just because you see somebody else flying by and things that appear to be easy for them doesn't mean that on a spiritual level, they're gaining any ground on you. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. This is about you. It's not about anybody else. So stop comparing yourself to anyone else. And even from a practical level, there's a lot of things that you need to work on, and you're not going to be able to tackle everything at once. So you need to prioritize what's best for you in your own individual journey to create the most amount of development that you need at your specific place and time. And stop looking at other people and saying, well, I need to be doing this or that because that's what they're doing. If you're 60 pounds overweight, it's probably a bad idea to copy somebody else's ultramarathon workout program to start. And again, this is because you can set yourself up for failure by trying to compete with everyone and anyone else, some of whom are lying about what they're doing, and others are just beyond your level because they've moved on past where you're at. They passed those crossroads long before. And so it's no insult to you that you're at where you're at in your journey. It's just that this is where you currently are. It is what it is. You need this chapter in your book so that the rest of the story makes sense. And lastly, you must remember that you do not win the race by looking at second place, regardless of whether you think they are far behind you or miles ahead of you. This is your race, and the only opponent is you. You need to know what you're doing. You need to know what your priorities are. The only thing you need to do is put one foot in front of the other and make progress every single day. You don't need to skip ahead. You don't need to cut corners, because it's the journey itself that is the most important part. Each day you need to, at the very least, strive to maintain where you're at, and if possible, try to get better. You do not need an overnight transformation. If all you're doing is running a mile a day, just increase it by a quarter mile each week. If you're struggling with alcohol, just don't drink today. Don't worry about next week. Don't worry about next month. Just don't drink today. If you're reading 5 pages a day, slowly work it up to 20. If you're not praying at all, just start whenever you remember. If you're praying a couple times a week, move it up to once a day. If you're putting in sporadic time to fix your financial situation or to start your own business, schedule in 20 to 30 minutes a day. Slowly increase day after day after day. The whole idea is that you have to make progress each and every single day. This is the only race in which defeating your opponent gives them the greatest of victories. So don't worry about where somebody else is at in their own personal journey, because they're not getting measured against you either. They're getting measured against themselves. You're going to be measured by how much effort you put in. You know when you're being lazy, you know when you're cutting corners, you know when you can do more, and no one has the capability to measure that true success except for God. At the end, you're not competing against anyone else. In fact, you should be rooting for everyone else. And if they had any love for humanity, they'd be rooting for you too. So run your race without any judgment for anyone else other than yourself. And keep your assessment of that effort to what you know you are capable of in your efforts towards your goals, towards your spiritual development, and towards the perfecting of the character and how you carry yourself throughout the journey that makes you who you are.